our first session that we have this morning is Mr. Paul Miller. He is a former board member, and we were just talking. He is probably the second longest lasting person who's been here since the beginning, Claire being the first at Trinity Academy. He is our primary policy writer here at Trinity Academy, and he knows us in and out. The board governance and how we set it up was very prayerfully considered. And so I'm very thankful to this man. Yes, I love you. Thank you. I'll stop talking.
I'll try to speak up. Now, one of the nice things about coming in and watching everybody trickle in is I realize that most of you are very active in the local body of believers because you filled the back pews first. You make the visitors come up front or those that are a little late. So that's a good thing and a bad thing. I'm going to try to use my preacher's voice to get to all of you. We are not mic'd. So as a result, if I start to tail off, as speech tends to do, raise your hands in the back if you can't hear me, or just shout out. I'm okay with that. No, this notebook is not a big formal presentation. It's just everything I've collected. So I'm not going to be up here for 3 hours. I hope. I guess if you have a lot of questions, I will be. My name is Paul Miller. I'm leaving my contact information because this is supposed to be a little bit of a flyover on governance. So I'm always open for discourse, whether by email or preferably face-to-face. If somebody has questions that they want to ask later, you're going to have plenty of opportunity to ask questions in here. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint. This is going to be more of a round table. If you have a question, raise your hand. We'll stop and we'll answer that question right then and there. If I can't answer it, I'll write it down and get back to you. That I promise. So I'm 71 years old. I'm on that geriatric end of things. Okay, I was here basically shortly after the school formed. I was asked on the board and took that as a calling from God. And I was on the board for six and a half years. During that time, I also was a co-teacher, mostly for grammar school, a little bit of rhetoric. Logic. So I did a little bit of that. After I got off the board, I still served on the committees for that. And at one point, I got called to fill a vacancy for a little while as the upper grades math teacher, and that was an interesting exercise for me. So I got to see it from the faculty side as well. My background is nuclear Navy, submariner. As you know, the military is pretty strict on documentation. Once I got out of the military, I was still in the nuclear power industry for a long time with all of the NRC requirements. For that, I dealt a lot in documentation. I was in a consultant role when we had to deal with several companies on doing their ISO 9000 documentation. And I'm telling you that simply because when I got on the board, guess what happened? Somebody that's got experience in a particular area gets the job. So I did get the job. I was glad for it. So that's kind of my background. What is governance? Anybody? Give me a best guess. It doesn't matter. Wow. Do you guys deal with any form of governance? Like on a day-to-day basis?
Like what rules a body or
an authority
organization?
It's an entity that has authority and control. And what it has authority and control over is behavior. So they impose certain rules or standards that need to be met to function. So it's not a bad thing. It can be, but it's not a bad thing. Here's the real question. What's the opposite of governance?
Chaos.
Say it loud.
Anarchy.
Anarchy. Okay, now anarchy gets a bad rap. You know, Sons of Anarchy on television. Well, anarchy is not chaos. Okay, the true definition of anarchy is the lack of imposed control. It's an organic control. Can you guys think of anything that would be anarchy from the definition I gave you? Anybody? This is going to be a quiet crowd, so I'll do the altar call and we can go. Common law. Anybody know anything about common law? It's a set of not imposed standards that are agreed upon generally by the population. Basically originated in its form out of England. On a smaller scale, the only thing I could come up with is a group of homeschool parents that to get together that have no ruling body. They just all agree to do things together and agree without having it in writing what to do. However, most things, most individuals, most groups are governed. So we'll give you county, state, townships, federal. Those are all forms of governance. I'll give you that. Name me some other forms of governance. Anybody? I would like responses. Can. More coffee?
School board. School board.
School board. Okay? Public school board. And as we'll get into, private school board. Anything else?
Churches.
Thank you very much.
Military.
Military. Okay?
My home.
Your home, I really like that one because it fits with churches. So, anybody else? Nonprofits of all kinds, right? Whether it's a political action group or whether it's just somebody like Trinity Academy or a pregnancy resource center. The commonality is they're all governed by a group of people, right? A board. Now, who does that board answer to? Any thoughts?
What they choose.
Pardon?
Whatever they choose.
But they answer to somebody or something.
The owner.
The owner, okay, or owners, if it's plural, right? Now, you can have a board, but it basically is taking what the owner desires for that organization. They establish the rules, the governance process, and then delegate that below. Okay? Now, boards go all over the place. You can have a board under an authoritarian that is nothing but a rubber stamp board because it's just that one person. Totalitarian governments, that's it. Whatever he says, whatever Idi Amin said, whatever Mao Zedong said. Okay? Even though there's something under there, they're just rubber stamping it. That's not right. Okay? What's the other way that really happens? And this would be in public school boards. You find out that they're really an administrative board. So they designate somebody in school. It's usually an administrator or a superintendent. So they designate somebody that has the responsibility, but they keep the authority for themselves. So if you got an administrative board, they're going to dictate rules down at the level they're not really trained to do. And they're going to micromanage. And the difficulty is they take that authority and then they'll dictate, and then if it goes right, they'll take the credit. If it goes wrong, they fire the superintendent. So it's just, there's a whole plethora of those. So that's kind of a layout for that. Boards in general. You can find myriad books, probably a whole library of books on how to be a manager, how to be somebody at Mr. Murray's level, how to be somebody at CEO level in a for-profit organization. Books galore. You remember the Jack Welch's Wright's book, Jeff Immelt Wright book, the head of Enron, all those people, and oftentimes those boards failed. But by the same token, it is a board that's been established. So not having any information on how a board operates, you get a lot of ad hoc processes. School boards. How do you get on a school board? You run an elected office, right? So who are you actually answering to? It's a difficult one because the owners are actually the recipients of the service for the most part. So you get elected, there's politics, and then you have government that knows nothing about schools, essentially nothing. And they dictate the things that the board has to do, even though that's not really a style of governance. Okay, so that's a difficulty. So in that, there is no model out there. There hasn't been ever. The first person that came up with it is John Carver, who is the model we use. But John Carver came up with a philosophy of how a board should work. And that's any board, secular, Christian, it doesn't matter. So he brought up this model. It's the only one out there still to this day. Now, John Carver has died, but his works live on. So what we have is a model, the only model that we had. So how did we get to that? Well, when this school was first envisioned, it was the Mounteens and one other that went down to a presentation by University Model Schools. Okay, and that's how we kind of got the start. And in that, they recommended strongly using the Carver Model. So we started from the beginning, started from scratch. Basically, without having to correct anything, we were writing from scratch. and using the Carver model as that. Let me back up just a little bit. In order to establish the school, we have to follow the federal government and the state government for a nonprofit, because this was to be a nonprofit school. So at the beginning, you had to write a certain set of limited bylaws, and you had a couple of policies that were required, and then you submitted to that, and we became a 501c3 or a nonprofit. At some point in time, we have developed our policies that basically took all of the bylaws and incorporated them into our governance manual. So I'm just checking my notes to make sure I'm not covering. Trinity Academy, because it's a school, Carver covers everything, secular, nonprofit, it doesn't matter, libraries, health organizations, it covers everything in general. But there's another author that really came across that also recommended Carver, and that's Mr. Lowry. So his is Serving God on a Christian School Board. And I'll just do my plug now. These are very easy reads. Okay, there's 5 of these. One of them's checked out already. This is Lowry. Anybody can read that in a couple of days, given enough time. So if you're tired of knitting or tired of doing something, sit down and read this book. These are just 5 little pamphlets that give, I'll call it the Cliff Notes version of Carver Model. We're going to cover that a little bit. So those are available in the office with David. Other things that are available in the office from the board level are this entire governance manual. It is available in there. It's not in place yet, but there will be a public drive available where you can get in and look electronically at all public documents that the board has. It's yours. We try to be transparent as we can. Carver Model overview. Before I go there, are there any questions? I know you guys are all quiet, so. The Carver Model divides things up in quadrants. Okay? This side is the board. This side is operation. Our owner is who? Come on, guys. God is our owner, just as it should be for any church board that you may serve on. Okay? God is our owner, right? Prayerfully, a board is appointed to take care of this school. Okay, so what we have here, I'm going to call them ends. You can call them vision, goals, objectives, whatever. At the school level, the board establishes what we are going to do as an entity. They establish that. The board establishes that in our particular manual, that's section 1. It establishes the school, the guidelines for the school, overall guidelines for the school, which includes the whole thing with the hybrid, the classical, and the Christian. That's all covered in there. That cannot be changed by the board to change directions except by unanimous decision of all city board members. It is fixed. Unless God calls everybody to change the focus of the school, that doesn't change. So you write these ends, right? But how does the board operate? This is a lot of stuff that came out of the bylaws. So this is section 1. This is section 2. This is how we operate. How many board members? How do you elect a board member? How do you pass a measure? How do you discuss? What do you do in meetings? How often do you meet? All the details are in there. And so the board operates, and that changes over time. This is a living document, especially from section 2 on. It's a living document. So we run into difficulties or require clarification. We prayerfully discuss those things and incorporate that into the document. So it's a living document. So these are all the means. Forgive my writing. I don't like to turn my back too much on the crowd. It's a Bill Hickok thing. So this side of this circle, everything is an end, purpose of the school, mission and vision posted on the wall back there. This is how the board operates. So you can see the detail of how meetings are, how things are recorded, how you can talk to the board, and this is all on the board. Now the board then is going to authorize or delegate to, in our case, the administrator. Could be a superintendent, director, there's lots of different titles for them, but the person that's going to be in charge of the operations to reach this in particular, they're going to have their ends. So these are operational ends. And those are things that the school as a whole in its operation needs to accomplish. Now, we're broken up into 4 different categories that we've written there. That's going to be section 3 through section 6 of the manual. Like section 3 is administrative policies, 4 is operation policies, 5 are academic policies, and 6, a very tiny section on extracurricular activity. So what we do then is we write those categories around here on the outside, right? If you make them a really broad level, what you've done is given the administrator the authority to accomplish the ends by whatever means he thinks is appropriate. Under Carver, what you want to do is, from the board, carefully considering, do we want to restrict that a little bit? So what you get down here are executive limitations. Okay, so we say, we want you to get this, we want you to produce this for your users, which are the families, the children. We want you to produce this, but we're not going to let you use this to get there. So as long as he's getting here without violating any of these limitations that are put on his operation, say his, her, whoever's there, then it's good. They've achieved everything the school wanted them to achieve. So that's the general layout. So you may have one, give you an example here. I'm trying not to get too bogged down in this. So in our section 4 operations, I'm going to read to you a little bit, right? So we've got over operations, I'm going to read this to you. The Trinity Academy administrator is delegated all authority and responsibility to achieve the school mission and vision, and the board of directors ends policies as restricted by executive limitation, which is what I said. So we start out section 4, this is what we allow. But under that, there are some limitations even at that top level. So this is the top level under operations, right? So we would go this way. Say, oh, we want to limit that, we want to limit that, and we want to limit that. Anything else in here, the administrator can do. You may have another one that's just really broad, and it just stays on this circle. Anything under here, the administrator can do. Okay? Sometimes, because it's a living document, if the administrator comes and is asking for clarification on things, that's a clue that we need to relook at the wording or determine if we need to provide more directions. Hasn't happened that often, but it does happen. And that's what the board's job is, to prayerfully go back and say, what do we need to do? Are there more limitations we need to do or more direction for an end? So under that 4.0, just on the top one that I just read to you, there are some limitations right there. Excuse me if I'm reading to you. The Trinity Academy administrator shall not cause nor allow any practice, activity, decision, or organization circumstance that is unlawful, imprudent, unethical, or in violation of board policies and directives. So again, he cannot, in his operation, violate any of that. There are a couple more that I'm not going to read. But underneath operation, I'm going to jump to 4.2. Because this one's pretty good. So 4.2, as it relates to you guys, is parent relationship. Okay. Under 4.2, parent relationship. This is, all of this stuff impacts you, and I encourage you to read this if you can. It's not a long read. So 4.2, that's Christian family relationship. 4.2.1 is another ends. In local parentis, Trinity Academy shall train all faculty to embrace the concept of parents as the head of biblically sanctioned family and as the highest earthly authority over their children. Trinity Academy's supervisory authority over the children is granted as a temporary delegation only. So you guys are in control. The teachers aren't in control. But there's a limitation to that. Well, there's two, but one of them is faculty and staff directions to a child should not supersede that of a parent unless a child is in harm's way or parental direction is determined to have an adverse effect on the learning environment in which the child is placed. So at that point, the parents lose a little bit of control because of that restriction. Another one is faculty shall not communicate disrespectfully or confrontationally to a parent, particularly in front of any child. So we've given that direction that the faculty and staff for Trinity Academy are not the parents. We are not the parents. We are not the daycare. Okay, so what we are saying is if you guys have direction, your child can't do something, and there's a reason for it, and it doesn't disrupt or doesn't cause harm, then you are the final say. And as with anything, except federal government hospital, although you can walk from that, you can walk out from under it. So if you decided, well, I just can't put up with all this, then nobody's forcing you to come to Trinity Academy. Hopefully you know that this is still the best choice in the area, by a long shot. Okay, so under that, again, Christian family relationship, there's two others. I'm going to read them just because I think we have time. What is my time up? I'm going to burn out, I'm sure, all the time.
25 minutes.
Got 25 more minutes? Trinity Academy shall encourage family and student participation in Christian missions of evangelism and service as their calling, making diligent effort to individualize instruction during planned absences for such missionary efforts. Your efforts as the primary teacher, the primary spiritual leader of your children, we will not circumvent them. If you want your child to go on a mission trip to Haiti or Costa Rica, and they have the opportunity, I don't care if it's during school year, it doesn't matter. Let your teachers know ahead of time. Let the administration know ahead of time, and they will make every effort to accommodate that without any punishment on the job. That's just what it is. God's call is greater than Trinity Academy's call. The third one under that is Trinity Academy shall encourage active family participation with the local body of believers as an essential component, both spiritual, emotional, and physical, of partnering with Trinity Academy in the Christian education of their children. You need to be part of a body. It could be a home church, it could be an organized church, it could be an older denomination, a younger denomination. Like I said, you all sit in the back, so I know you're going somewhere. So that's the three things under there that were written by the board. The administrator then would take in his operations, his scheduling, his directions to teachers. That's what he will do. And he will report to the board. We're improving on this. He will report to the board on how he did. Did I accidentally violate something? Then I'm going to fix it this way. Did I meet all these requirements? Absolutely. It's gone well. So those are the things that are quite joyful in that. So I'm going to go back to the governance manual. It's sounds terrible. It's 25 pages long, but that's not too bad. I've seen some board manuals that are 3 volumes of 4-inch binders, and finding anything in it is just a Herculean task, no doubt. But read it. The organization is section 1. That's the precepts of the school. Section 2 involves the board. It's how they function. Sections 3, 4, 5, and 6 are for the school itself. And those would be of the greatest interest for you guys as parents. I recommend you read it. Matter of fact, I recommend you get involved in any level of governance because you're all exposed to some level of governance. Whether it's in the family, whether it's at work, whether it's volunteer, public school, if you're still participating in that in some fashion, your church in particular, whatever your governing body is, that's directed. That's a nice one because it's God to the apostles, to the local elders / bishops, to the deacons, to the church body. All of them taking out God's business on down. Family. God first, right? What comes next? Come on, guys. This is classical school. What comes next after God in your families?
Husband. My husband is dead.
Okay? And underneath that? Children. Underneath that? Church body. Okay? The body with which you're associated. Underneath that? Last stage. Selfishness, bottom. God ranks that at the bottom. So you're all under some form of governance. You might be under HOA. I don't even know if they have those things around here, but if you live in a closed community, oftentimes there's an HOA that can be good, it can be really bad. Homeowners Association, if you don't know what I'm saying. So you're all under some form of governance. It affects your lives whether you like it or not. You're under the state government, you're under the county government, you're under the federal government. Get involved. Under Trinity Academy, you're under the board governance. Get involved. Know what's going on. Know how these things relate. Any questions so far? I realize I'm going to be question shy here, so. Oh, yay! Thank you, Ms. McDonald.
Can you how can parents get involved?
Getting to that next section. You read my notes. Anybody else? Okay. Before I do that, board members, former board members, stand up. I think it's just you, Kate.
Nice.
Faculty, staff, just raise your hand. Oh, that's good. First time co-teachers, just so I got an idea. Okay? Multiple time co-teachers, be the rest of you, I hope, and some of you faculty and staff and board members that are also co-teachers. Okay, I just wanted to get a feel for that. What is the parent relationship to an individual board member? Whatever you want it to be, except not as a board member. Okay, so when you talk to a board member as an individual, he's a friend, coworker, somebody you want to talk to, whatever, but what you say doesn't go to the board because he's just one of all the board. And the board speaks in one voice. So it's never, 3 people voted for this and 4 people voted for that. That's no. When the board decides something, it's everybody on the board agrees with it. So when you speak to an individual board member, it may or may not ever even come up in discussion outside of your talk with that individual board meeting. There's no dividing. There's no trying to find somebody else that's a team and listening to your side of things. But getting to your point, Ms. Morgan, there is a way to get to it, okay? Number 1, scheduled board meetings are open, which means you can come and sit and observe. You're not invited to talk necessarily, but you can see how it's working. You can see some of the discussion going on and what they do. Particularly, you get to enjoy part of the devotions, which are always a great part of board meetings. What you won't see is individual votes. That will go to a closed session. So when something comes out of a closed session as a vote, it's 100%. It was unanimous. There is no other way that we'll present that. So the board will be open until there's something that needs to go to closed session. Other things in closed session is covered in section 2 if you want to see it. A few other things, or if it has to do with the school security, if it has to do with compensation, if it has to do with punishment. So those things go to closed session because individual discussion about individuals or processes that are critical to the school will go to closed session. But you are welcome to sit in all open sessions. Now, if they want you to talk, they're welcome. If the board wants you to talk and they want you to answer questions or make a joke with you, that's perfectly fine. It's a lot of camaraderie that goes into those board meetings. And it can be great to just sit in and be a part of it. There is another way to go to the board. If you really feel like you have something to say, you can submit a petition to the chairman of the board on what you want to talk about. You'll be given a limited amount of time unless they decide they want to extend it, which they can do. But you may present what you would like to say to the board, and it'll go to the board chair. If it has anything to do with good church discipline, if it's a problem that you got with another family, a teacher, another child, it's not going to go to the board. That is not the process. The process is actually outlined in your parent-student handbook. You need to do Matthew 18. If you don't know the Matthew 18 form of church reconciliation, church discipline, you need to know it. So if you've got a problem with this other parent, you don't go running to the administrator, to the board first. What do? What's the first thing you do as a problem within the church? Go to the person. in private, just the two of you, you talk it over, right? I won't get into the detail, but then it's an escalating thing. If that does not accomplish what needs to be done, it goes up to a next level. The final level before the board is if nothing can be resolved, all the way up to the administrator and his staff. If nothing can be resolved and you still feel like it needs to be brought to the board, you go to a third-party ombudsman. Somebody has nothing to do with the school, it's usually a counselor. He'll sit down with both parties and look at it. If he determines it's something the board needs to hear, he will make the recommendation. He's the gatekeeper. If it is not something for the board, you will not go to the board with it. Just plain and simple. So you've got a lot of access processes there, but the board chair is the ultimate decider on whether, when you want to speak, if it's something the board needs to hear. Okay? And that's the final decision too. Your voice with the board under normal circumstances is through the administrator and through the faculty that are appointed to that. Mr. Snett, you're still a student. You have the title as Student Affairs or Dean of Students, Dean of Faculty. So if faculty has a problem, it's the same way. You treat it the same way. Matthew 18. Okay? And under that, it's going to, if it needs to escalate, it'll go through each of those processes. So if I guess I should say too, if you got a question or a comment about curriculum, then you would go to Mrs. Montine. I think she's the Dean of Britain. So there are avenues of getting that, but David is your voice. If you have something you really want to tell the board, but you don't really feel like speaking up in front of them, you just think it's something they should consider, take it to David. Sorry, Mr. Murray, I'm used to first name. Take it to him. He'll sit and talk with you or with the faculty, and they'll determine, okay, I can see your point. I'll bring it up as your point or a group of family points. So there are many avenues to get to. But going directly to the board with anything is forbidden. It really is not functional, and it will be shut down. So, trying to think if there's anything else on that. Your student parent handbook, I know it's a requirement for you guys to read. I really recommend it because it's good. It hasn't changed significantly over the 5-6 years that we've had it. It's good information. It's good information how you deal with teachers, how teachers deal with your students, your children. Well, there's good stuff in there on discipline, the different levels of discipline. There's just a lot of really, really good information in there. So, okay, this is the next point where I ask, are there any more questions? You win the prize so far. Anybody else? Seriously. I'd like to see half a dozen. If we have to move out of the normal small room that we have board meetings in and move to a bigger venue just because people want to hear what's going on, fabulous. That means people care.
Did you say when the meetings are?
They're on the calendar, so the next one is the 15th of this month, and they're typically every month, except for the annual retreat, which would not be open, and that's in July. Am I saying that right?
Correct. And they usually Fridays at 3:30 here at the school is when, but then they're decided at the board meeting, depending on when all the board members can meet. So we try to do the, because schedules are crazy, right? So.
How many board members are they and how are they
Good
put to
question.
the board?
We were set up under the bylaws for 6 to 9. Okay, that's our gap. Because we're kind of a working board right now, and just going on 10 years old at this school, not even a mentally faced teenager yet as far as the school. All right, so we're still growing. The board is still doing a lot of activities that are kind of new ground that we're on. So the board is more of a working board than a praying board. So 6 to 9, 5 to 7 is an ideal number for a board that doesn't have to do a lot of work. So we chose 6 to 9. That's what the bylaws are set up on, and we really haven't seen any need to change that. So actions from the board require a supermajority. So it's one of those things where a supermajority has to decide anything, otherwise business gets rolled over until the next time you can have that many at a meeting. I think I answered your question. There are
We currently have 6.
What's that?
We currently have 6. So
Currently have
we
6.
have 3 open positions.
How do you become a member of the board?
I'm glad you asked. make sure I'm saying this right, please. To become a board member, we ask that you come and you attend 2 meetings. At the end of those meetings, or sometime during that, there's a petition that you can fill out to become a board member. The board will go into closed session, may call you in to interview you and talk to you, they'll check your references and those kind of things, and then they'll go into a closed session and they will accept you as a board member. I've never heard of a board member not being accepted, so once you've got that point, you see how the board works, and you feel like God is leading you to be a part of that board, then it's a fairly simple process. Now, board work itself generally is just a couple hours once a month. That's the board work. So you'll probably be on committees, and that generally requires more time depending on the activity level of committees. I'm on the finance committee, and during busy season, which is leading up to the new tuition and the new budget, we usually meet once or even twice a month. Not real long. Planning committee right now is in full swing. There's going to be a presentation on that a little later. That's an active committee. Development committee is coming up. These are the standing committees with the board. Development committee is coming up. So yes, my pitch is come visit, observe. You're not required to sign up for the board, but come and see what the board does. And if God says you can help, you can be in this, then don't resist the call of the Holy Spirit ever.
May I add something to that?
Yes.
So typically, when someone's interested in the board, I like to sit down and meet with them one-on-one whenever it works out. And that way we can talk about, okay, this is how we operate. This is our priorities. This is what we ask of our board members. And just to make sure that you are fully aware of the expectations and the processes and all that kind of the intimate details. And then also on this application or petition to be on the board, there is suggested reading. And how to be on the Christian school board is on there and some of those things. So then we can talk about some of those recommended readings too. So by the time we get to the petition part, so technically it takes at least 2 months because you have to attend 2 full board meetings before you can be voted on. But typically if someone really feels called and we sit down and have that discussion, we can have that at the conclusion of that second meeting you have attended. We have gone into closed session and voted at that time. But the more you know and the more we can sit down ahead of time and have that conversation, it just helps streamline the whole thing. And I've had, most of the time people follow through, but I've had times where we've sat down and prayerfully talked about it together and they decide, you know what, I don't think the board's where I want to serve, but I want to serve in this place. So it just depends.
And committees are the same way. You don't have, there are a board member requirement to be on each committee. But if you feel like, okay, I can just help with planning or development or one aspect of development, then just get on those committees. Again, it's helping out with the governance. So that's definitely an appeal. A second appeal is somebody's going to have to take over for me. I'm not going to live forever. Pray to God, I'm not going to live forever. Not on this earth anyway. So if somebody is really interested in the whole organized process of board governance, then I will be happy to sit down and do my best sales pitch to take over for me while I can kind of mentor you along and then pass it on. So got to pass on to a younger generation. Always train your replacement. I've been told that for decades. So these again are in the administrator's office. You can check them out. These are just short synopses of them. There are 2 or 3 of the bigger book, the ones from which these were derived. So if you really are starting to get into it and start to want to see the nuances, Carver Model's not perfect. It's just the best there is out there. So that's my pitch for that. Other questions? Because we're going to do an exercise where you guys have to talk.
So I'll ask a question so I don't have to do that part.
We can do somebody run out of time.
So I wanted to ask the committees, does it lay out in the governance manual like the types of committees
Yes.
and what those the specs are, like what the goals of each of those committees? And are there any rules about faculty serving on committees?
No, there are not, to answer your last question. So under 2, section 2, which is how we do things, it outlines the structure. Standing committees, which gotta get to the right section, guys. Sorry. Standing committees are those committees that are always in existence under the board. They're allowed to do an ad hoc committee, which is give an objective for a limited period of time. Once the objective is met, the committee is disbanded. Okay, so the standing committees or the executive committees. Now, the executive committee is just made up of the 4 board officers. So you've got a chairman, vice chairman, treasurer, and secretary. Those make up the executive committee, and there are duties and responsibilities that fall strictly to them, particularly in emergency actions. Underneath the board also is the finance committee, and that's kind of a hybrid committee because part of it is what the administrator needs in establishing budgets and dealing with monetary issues, and part of it is what the board needs because the treasurer chairs that committee. So then another committee is the planning committee. Planning committee in a nutshell, and all the detail is underneath these in section 2. Planning committee in a nutshell, and we'll get into more detail in a minute, is doing the long-range planning for the school. Things like adding a particular curriculum or building purchase or building construction, or those things fall under the planning committee. The next one's the development committee, and that's marketing, capital campaigns, taking care of all the things that would need to, I guess, be in a response to both what the administrator needs for recruiting as well as what the school needs for getting to their financial goals on whatever comes out of the planning committee. Kind of cobble that together. We used to have a building and grounds committee, but we determined recently that that's really not board level function. So that has fallen down to the administrator. And this is one I highly recommend, that if you just want to deal with the building and the requirements for upkeep and everything else, he's the one to talk to. Go talk to him, get on that committee. Not really formed yet, but it will be formed, and it deals with anything from janitorial to classroom improvements and things like that. So I'm speaking out of turn. You'll get to establish that yourself. Ad hoc committees, fairly regularly we form a governance ad hoc committee. It's usually formed to review one particular section because each section 3 through 6 has to be reviewed once every 2 years. So in that review, you would form an ad hoc committee. They go out and do the research. They come up, they see, are there any recommendations for changes? Have we had any difficulties? Is there any clarification required? And if there was none, then you just disband the committee. They also take care of other board documentation, such as position descriptions, etc. So, but those are the only standing committees, plus the ad hoc. And that, again, is in section 2 if we need to see the detail. Come on, guys, you can get away from, is this my end, or if I can get to go, it's like 10 minutes?
We can take
I have a question. Once the board has a meeting, are your meeting minutes posted somewhere
They will
where
be.
everyone can see that?
They currently are not, but we're trying to get Google Drive set up where we can have just a general access drive and a governance manual, position descriptions, board minutes, not closed meeting, but just board minutes that are open for public. We'll get them there where you can go click and go back however many years you need to. We're just starting it, so I don't know if we'll divide up older stuff, but we will, going forward, have them segregated for their full access. So, and you always have the opportunity, if it's just a question, you can ask a board member that knows, or ask the chairman of the board, or ask me, and we can find what you're looking for if it's just a question. So,
Do you post your agenda of that meeting in advance? So if there's something in particular that someone's hoping you all are discussing, we would know ahead of time?
We haven't
to
talked
attend
about that.
meeting?
agendas
We're gonna have
oftentimes
to
are written.
really button up our organization because I let the secretary know, okay, this is what's on the agenda. He makes it out. We usually get it sent to the board members a day or two ahead of time. So that could be something to discuss, an objective, a goal. But yeah, we're gonna have to really tighten up on our ahead planning on those things. It starts off with, okay, this is the old business, and continuing it on. And then things that I've become aware of or that Mr. Murray thinks we need to bring forward. And then there's some things that are scheduled, reviews of certain sections, like if the reports on the committee. So like I will go in, so I'm the chair, but I will go in, and if I haven't attended the planning committee meetings, then I come in and I get a report from the planning committee that I may not know ahead of time what is even being reported. So kind of know. We don't have anything yet, and it's a possibility it could be organized, but everybody would have to really step up their game to have stuff way farther ahead than we do now.
And we're trying to get there. Again, we're a growing organization, just like you can see with the students and everything. So we're trying to get there, but because it's a volunteer organization, people are not working 40, 50 hours a week. Retired coops like me get a little more time, but those that have work or kids at home, so
And I
that's a good idea. I like that, and we can discuss it and see if that's something we can add into where it's posted with this as a proposed agenda on the day that it's going to be there. So.
I wanted to throw into, like, we're talking about board member membership. I know when I first came on the board and when we have talked to different people about joining the board, there's always a concern that I don't have the credentials to be on this board. So I will tell you what I look for and what the board desires in a board member: someone who feels called, who loves the school, and has a heart for the mission. Those are my objectives. I don't care what your education was. I don't care about what's on paper, if you served on other boards, any of those things. And I will tell you, I felt ill-equipped to come, but I felt a very, very heavy calling and a very large openness that I want to serve the Lord at the school. I didn't have any objectives. I didn't say, I want it now. If you have a passion for the building, be on the building and grounds committee. If you have a passion for the development part, be on the development committee. But truly, for our board members, we want someone who is chasing after the Lord, loves the Lord, and feels a heavy calling. When I'm seeking board members or talking to people about being board members, I am not looking for somebody that I am trying to convince. I'm looking for somebody that says, God has laid it on my heart to look into this. And I love people that are like, this is out of my comfort zone, and I don't really know if this is what I want to do, but I feel God laying it on my heart. That is huge for me, because to me that means God's going to equip you where he places you, and you don't have an agenda coming onto the board. Because since we serve the owner is God, we're not serving our own agendas. And that can be one of the most difficult parts of being on the board. Is I personally may prefer it to be here. Maybe it serves my family better if this is what we do. But when I go in that board meeting, I'm not serving my family. I'm serving the Lord and his mission at Trinity. So if you feel unequipped and that is why you're not pursuing it, please don't. If you feel that prick from the Lord to become involved, that's exactly where we want you. That's the heart we're looking for.
A precaution if, for instance, you have a background, former administrator of school, or you have a background in education, it's difficult to stay here. You tend to want to bleed over into here. That's not the board's authority. Okay? The board just dictates what needs to be done and what can't be done. But if you try to bleed over and say, oh, you've got to teach Saxon math, why? That's not the board's job. You're going to end up being like a public school board at that. So that's a precaution. Understand that when you get in there, just as with being a parent on the board, you've got to take off your parent hat, and now you got to put on your school board hat when you get in there. When you talk to the administrator, you've got kids in school. As a board member, you've got to make sure you take your board member hat off, because he doesn't have to listen to you as an individual board member. He just wants to listen to you as a parent. So you can get no instruction as an individual board member. So that kind of wandered around. So yes, get on the board, be active. Anybody else? Then I think I'm being told to quit. Very strongly. You guys don't have to do the exercise. Thank you, guys. And again, my email, that's the best way, because if I'm outside, I don't have a phone with me. So just send me an email. Somewhere in the subject, put TA or Trinity Academy, otherwise one might jump in. So, and then I won't ever get it. So, anything else, guys? Okay.
Thank you.
Go over to